Imagine coming home to find strangers trampling 5 years of your life into the mud. Now, imagine the man who let them in was your own husband, and he doesn't even think he did anything wrong. This is the true story of how one woman took back what was hers, without raising her voice once. Stay until the end, because the moment security rolls up in two blacked-out SUVs is something you will not want to miss. And if stories like this keep you hooked, hit that subscribe button right now, because there's a new one waiting for you every single week, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Diane Whitfield pulled up to the gate of her lake house on a warm Saturday afternoon, expecting silence, the smell of pine, and maybe an hour with a book on the porch. Instead, she heard music blasting from an old speaker, laughter that wasn't hers, and the unmistakable clang of a beer bottle hitting the porch railing. She stood at the gate for a long moment, keys in hand, just watching. Her nephew-in-law, Tyler, was sprawled across the porch swing she'd painted last summer, taking a swig straight from a bottle. His younger brother, Nick, was crouched by the fire pit, feeding it with wood from her stacked pile like it belonged to him. "And Diane, relax," Tyler called out, not even bothering to sit up straight. "Uncle Greg said we could come out here whenever. We're family, right?" Nick nodded along from the fire pit. "Yeah, he told us we could use the place on weekends. Chill out." Diane didn't answer right away. She was too busy taking in the damage. Muddy sneakers were tossed across the porch she had refinished with her own hands the previous summer. Empty chip bags littered the steps. A dark, oily stain from spilled charcoal starter marked the lawn like a scar. And worst of all, the flower bed. Her peonies, the ones she had spent 5 years growing from imported bulbs, carefully ordered and nursed through 3 brutal Midwest winters, now lay in broken stems and crushed petals, flattened by a poorly aimed badminton birdie. This lake house wasn't just a property. It was her mother's final gift to her, the one thing in her life that was entirely, unquestionably hers. She had poured every spare dollar and every stolen weekend into it, a refuge from the noise of the city and the quiet, constant disappointment radiating from her husband. "Pack your things," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. Tyler's grin faltered. "Come on, we'll clean up later. Uncle Greg gave us the keys himself, said the place sits empty all May anyway." "You have 10 minutes, Diane said. "Then I'm calling the police." They left 20 minutes later, in no particular hurry, leaving behind a mountain of trash, an overturned grill, and the sour smell of cheap cigarettes clinging to the porch. Diane spent the rest of the evening alone, picking up cigarette butts and crushed cans by flashlight, dropping them into garbage bags one by one. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just felt something inside her go very quiet and very clear. This was a problem she was going to have to solve permanently. The next morning, Diane walked back into her own apartment to find Greg sprawled on the couch, half watching the morning news. "Oh, you're back," he said, not even turning his head. "The boys called. Said you kicked them out." "What's your problem, Diane?" "Why did you give them keys to my lake house?" she asked, stopping directly in front of the television so he'd have to look at her. Greg shrugged like the question barely deserved an answer. "So, what if I did? They're young, they needed to get out of the city for a bit. It's not like you're using the whole property yourself. There's plenty of room. They destroyed my flower bed. They scorched the lawn." "Grass grows back," Greg said, waving a hand. "We're family. Families share things. I told them they could come out every weekend this summer." Diane looked at her husband and realized, with total clarity, that he wasn't lying, and he wasn't even trying to provoke her. He genuinely believed it. In his mind, everything she owned quietly belonged to him too, and by extension, to whoever he decided to be generous with. He was handing out permission to something he had no right to touch, and he didn't see the problem at all. "They're not setting foot on that property again," Diane said. "They destroyed something that took me 5 years to build." Greg actually laughed. "We'll see about that. It's a shared property, and I'm your husband. I say who's welcome." There was no point arguing. Diane walked into the kitchen, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder of legal paperwork she had kept there for exactly this kind of moment. Inside was a certified copy of her inheritance documents, the deed, the notarized letter from the estate attorney, everything spelling out, in plain legal language, that she was the sole owner. Under state law, property inherited by one spouse is separate property, not shared marital property. Greg had no legal claim to that land whatsoever. Not 1 square foot of it. On Monday, Diane left work early and drove straight to a private security company across town. A broad-shouldered manager in a crisp uniform reviewed her ownership documents carefully, nodding along as she explained the situation. "I need monitored alarm coverage and a rapid response team tied to a panic button," she said. "There are people with a duplicate key who keep trying to access the property. They have no legal right to be there." "Understood," the manager said, already pulling up a service contract. "If our team responds to an alert, they'll verify photo ID and proof of legal right to be on the premises. Anyone without both gets detained for trespassing and handed over to local police." Diane paid for the equipment installation and 6 months of monitoring up front. That evening, she had the locks changed on the apartment door and quietly removed the spare set of lake house keys from Greg's nightstand drawer while he was in the shower. Friday came, and Greg left for a work trip out of state. Saturday morning, Diane drove out to the lake house alone. The weather was perfect, clear skies, a light breeze off the water. She pruned a few broken branches, made coffee on the porch, and sat down with a book, waiting. Around 3 in the afternoon, a car with tinted windows rolled up to the gate, music thumping through the open windows. Tyler, Nick, and 2 women Diane didn't recognize climbed out, hauling grocery bags of beer and steaks from the trunk. Tyler walked straight to the gate, pulled out his duplicate key, and tried the lock. Nothing happened. Diane had swapped the hardware the same day the security sensors went in. "Hey, Aunt Diane, the gate's stuck," Tyler shouted, spotting her on the porch. "Can I help you with something?" she called back, setting her book down calmly. "What do you mean?" "We're here to hang out." "Uncle Greg said the grill's open." "I'm not expecting guests," Diane said, loud and even. "You need to leave. This is private property." "Are you serious right now?" Nick kicked the gate. "This is Uncle Greg's lake house. We'll just climb the fence if you're going to be like this." Tyler pulled himself up and over the fence, dropping onto the property, without hesitation. Nick followed right behind him. The 2 women stayed near the car, phones already out, filming. The boys dropped their grocery bags on the grass and cranked the music even louder, like it was a party they'd been personally invited to. The security company's nearest response team was 5 miles out. Diane pulled out her phone, opened the app, and pressed the panic button. 7 minutes later, 2 black SUVs screeched to a stop outside the gate. 4 security officers in tactical vests stepped out. 2 moved to secure the 2 women at the gate. The lead officer keyed his radio and asked Diane to release the electronic lock. She pressed the button on her key fob. The team moved onto the property in complete silence, no wasted motion. Tyler barely had time to react before a firm, gloved hand landed on his shoulder and turned him toward the fence. "Rapid response team. Face the wall, hands where I can see them," the lead officer said, calm and flat. "What the hell? We're here visiting our uncle," Nick shouted, trying to twist away, but a second officer already had him secured. "I need to see photo ID and documentation proving legal right to be on this property," the lead officer said. "Documentation? What documentation?" Tyler's voice cracked with panic. "Our Uncle Greg said we could come. Call him right now." The officer glanced at Diane, asking whether these individuals had any legal right to be present. She said no, firmly. These were trespassers. With shaking hands, Tyler pulled up his phone, dialed Greg, and put it on speaker. "Hey, Ty, what's going on?" Greg's voice came through, relaxed, unaware. "Uncle Greg, there's security here. They're detaining us. Tell them you said it was fine." There was a pause on the line. Then Greg, sounding irritated now, snapped, "Hey, who's in charge there? I'm the husband. I gave them the keys myself. Back off and let them enjoy their day." The lead officer leaned in toward the phone. "This is the lead of a licensed rapid response security team. Per the ownership documents and service contract on file, the sole legal owner of this property is the woman standing in front of us. Your name does not appear anywhere on the deed. No authorization exists for these individuals to be on this property. Trespassing has been documented. We're contacting local police. Silence on the other end of the line. For the first time, it seemed to actually land. Being someone's husband didn't give Greg the right to hand out permission to something that was never his to give. Uncle Greg, Tyler said, his voice small now. Ty. Greg's tone had completely changed. Pack it up. Go home. I'll deal with it later. The call ended. The boys packed their things in under 2 minutes and were gone before the police report was even finished, leaving the grocery bags of steak sitting forgotten on the grass. The security team filed their incident report, Diane signed it, and the SUVs pulled away. The property went quiet again. If this story hit home for you, you already know what to do. Subscribe, because there's a whole world of stories just like this one waiting for you, and the next one might be the best yet. And if you want to support this channel directly and help us keep telling these stories, you can always drop something in the super chat. Every bit helps us keep going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.